Welcome. In this lesson, we're going to be talking about the brain's reset system, and that system is sleep. We're going to learn how sleep isn't just about resting, but it's actually an active process that helps your brain work better. So go ahead and open up your workbook to lesson 9.1, and let's get started.
So here's the main idea for today, and it's pretty straightforward. We can think of sleep as brain maintenance, and it really does two main jobs for us. It cleans and it files, just like that. The clean job clears out all the gunk and mental clutter from the day, and the file job helps save everything you learned so you can actually remember it later.
Okay, so in your workbook, the first question asks you to think about what cleans and files means in your own words. All right, let's dive a little deeper into that first job, the clean job. You can think of it like your brain is a computer that's been running all day long. By the end of the day, you've got all these temporary files and background apps running, kind of slowing everything down. While sleep is like the nightly rinse cycle that clears all of that out so you can start fresh the next morning. So what does the brain actually need to clean up? Well, during the day, your brain builds up all sorts of byproducts, sort of like mental waste. And during deep sleep, a special system kicks into high gear to flush all of that out. This is what helps clear away brain fog, or that feeling of being overloaded, or even stress. So, looking at the next question in your workbook, what do you think the brain needs to clean up after a full day? Go ahead and pause and write down a few ideas.
Okay, so once the cleaning process is handled, the brain shifts to its other big job, filing. And this is all about saving the learning you did so you can actually use it later. It's not just about stuffing information away. Sleep actively organizes and strengthens memories, making them stick.
Basically, sleep helps save the work you did during the day. So what kind of things does your brain file? Well, it could be information from your classes, a new skill you're practicing in sports or music, or even just remembering conversations with friends. On your page, write down 2 things your brain files during sleep. You can pause here to do that. So that brings up a really important question. What happens when we don't get enough sleep? When that clean and file system doesn't get to finish its job? Well, the effects show up in a pretty predictable way, and we can.
Here's a really helpful analogy. You know how if you go to the gym and work out really hard every single day without any rest days, your body eventually starts to break down? Well, it's the exact same principle for your brain. If you get short sleep night after night, your brain never gets to fully reset and it starts to break down too.
And this breakdown usually happens in a few stages. First, you might find yourself in the drift zone. This is where you're functioning, but everything feels a little dull or slow. You're just not as sharp. Then to compensate, you might push into overdrive, using stress or caffeine to power through. But you can't stay there forever, and eventually that can lead to breakdown, which looks like brain fog, being irritable, or just not being able to remember things. Now take a look at the curve in your workbook. Think about what drift, overdrive, and breakdown look and feel like for you. Use your own words to describe each of those zones. Go ahead and pause the video to fill that in. So, an interesting thing about being low on sleep is that specific things tend to drop off first. It's not just a general feeling of being tired. And if you can identify your personal warning signs, it can be really helpful. Usually, the first systems to suffer are things like your attention and focus, your working memory. That's like you know the information, but you just can't pull it out fast enough. Also, your decision-making can get worse, and maybe you've noticed this one, your emotional regulation. Your patience gets a lot shorter. Okay, so back in your workbook, I want you to look at that list and circle the 2 things that drop first for you when you're tired. Then, just take a moment to describe what that actually looks like in your day-to-day life. Go ahead and pause to do that now. This leads us to the question of how much sleep we actually need. And I want to be really clear here. Think of this number as a target for performance, not a test. This isn't about making you feel guilty. It's just about knowing the goal for your brain to be at its best. So, research shows that for teenagers, the ideal range for brain performance is somewhere between 8 and 10 hours of sleep in a 24-hour period. Now, everyone's a little different, but this is a really good target to aim for.
So in your workbook, take a moment to write down your best guess. How many hours of sleep do you usually get on a school night? And then, how many hours do you get on weekends? Go ahead and pause to write those numbers down.
Okay, now we're at the Apply It section in your workbook. Let's flip this around and think about what happens when things go right, when your brain's clean and file system gets the time it needs to work.
I want you to think about a time you felt really, truly rested. When you get enough sleep, what do you notice? Is your thinking clearer? Are you in a better mood? Is it easier to focus in class? Think about that and jot down a few notes on your page.
And what about learning specifically? How does getting enough sleep change things at school for you? In your workbook, you'll see a few options. Circle the ones that fit for you and then take a moment to explain your choices. Go ahead and pause here to finish that up. All right, we're almost at the end. Let's do a final systems check and reflection, because knowing all this is one thing, but thinking about your own habits is where it really starts to matter. In your workbook, you'll see a spot for a systems check. Think about your sleep right now. How consistent is it? I want you to check the box that best describes where you are, and then write down one thing you'd like your sleep system to become. And for our final reflection question, if we agree that sleep is the brain's reset system, what's one reason that protecting your sleep could make you a better learner? Go ahead and pause one last time to finish up this question and any others on the page. All right, so let's do a really quick recap of what we covered. First, sleep has two main jobs: to clean your brain and to file your learning. Second, not getting enough sleep can push you up the Storeylab curve toward breakdown. Third, for most of us, focus, mood, and memory are the first things to go when we're tired. And finally, that target range for teens is about 8 to 10 hours of sleep. Okay, great work today. Now please finish up the rest of the Lesson 9.1 page in your workbook. Next time, in Lesson 9.2, we're going to talk about why the timing of your sleep matters just as much as the amount. We'll see you then.